everybody, and welcome to spring 2025. Um,
Hey.
Yay! We wanted to take some space and just welcome everybody back. I think this break, I'll project and say for me, this break has felt it's felt long in both a very beautiful restorative way and a very, I don't know, some other not as beautiful ways. I keep saying, like,
Mhm.
I feel like it's January 64th. Um, and we just wanted to offer some reflections as we're welcoming our new peers in spring 2025. Before we jump in, we have John and Ree here today. Hey,
Hello. Hello.
how are you both doing? How are you feeling?
Hmm. I definitely agree with the break thing. Um, for me, it was also very restorative. I really needed it, but that restoration did not look how I wanted it to look. I was sleeping so much and I was so mad. I was like, no, I'd sleep past the sun. And I was like, that's so sad. But like now that I've gotten back into the groove, I definitely feel how it's helps me all that sleeping. And I was at RA training today, and apparently I was not alone in that. A lot of people were like the whole break, and yet it still lasted so long. So I was like, that's a little bit funny, but I guess maybe that's an example of how self care does not always look how we want it to look. It's kind of how we need it to look, unfortunately.
Oof. Yeah. How are you, John?
Yeah. I am very ready to be back at school. I'm kind of like going crazy, staying at home all day. So I moved over break. Um, I live with my grandparents again, and I'm like a full-time caretaker. That's like been my whole break. Um, but like now that I'm at school, the adults can figure stuff out and I can focus on schooling. And I'm very excited for that because I also have some really fun classes this semester. I'm taking a mural painting class and I'm excited about it.
I love that. Um, I think that kind of leads me into what I wanted to at least acknowledge and name, is that I think as we're starting this new term, I know John and I, we were both at orientation today, welcoming our new students for the spring, and I was just feeling so excited. We have such a wonderfully, again, diverse class. We have people for a very wide range of creative passions, different projects, different things that they want to do while they're here. And I'm thrilled about that. I'm also hoping that our new students are feeling pride, excitement, joy. We know it's not easy to get to, their first day at their new school. Um, and just it's a cheesy thing to say, but I was feeling so proud of like being with our new students today. And I think there's a little bit of a both and right now is that we cannot ignore that there's a lot of heavy feelings in the beginning of 2025. I think we've witnessed a lot of global news that have just felt absolutely devastating. We're coming off of some really impactful news from the West Coast over the past few weeks. And then, of course, with the change in the White House, there is by this, I don't know if there's any other way to say it than there's this just some really heavy feelings that we're going to be feeling right now.
Mhm.
I don't think I'm somebody that believes that you can kind of pick and choose the things that you feel. And I think a lot of times our feelings come in these layers where we're feeling things that feel like they are not the same, but they're happening at the same time. I wanted to ask you both, like, how do you respond to that? Like feeling these feelings that feel like they should be contradictory or they're not at the same time, but I think that's often our experience. For our students coming in, how do you kind of really intentionally sit with that?
Um, I tend to ponder on them. I've actually recently trying to really sit with and process my emotions more than I have in the past. I think I'm trying to break free from that like uh unfortunate uh trend with Latino people of like teaching their sons to be non-emotive. Like I feel like there's a very large lack in emotional intelligence with a lot of Latino men. And unfortunately, I've also been impacted by that. I think I wasn't raised to have a lot of emotional intelligence. And so that's something I've worked through. One of the things I like to do, especially if it's more intense or like, um, I don't know, more of an interesting enough concept, I will draw it.
Mhm.
I use art as a medium to express how I'm feeling sometimes, especially if I have the energy to make art, which, yeah, but that's one thing that I do.
Mhm. Yeah. I think for me, really, it's been really layered. I think it's been hard to describe how I feel, especially since, like you mentioned, Matthew, there's a lot of different emotions. And then, also with like John, it's like hard to identify all of them. I think even when, you know, as like a woman, you're raised with some kind of emotional intelligence, it's still hard. It's still like a long journey. And, I think for me, specifically, as I'm like learning to have, um, rage actually, and
Mhm.
also sadness. And then it's, especially when you don't know what to do with it, right? And it's just kind of sitting there, and you've processed it, but now you just have to like sit with it. It's, I'm not sure if I can offer perfect advice, I mean, like I use art. Art's a wonderful way to like work through it and process it. But then, like, after the processing and it's still there, it's like, now what? I think, especially today, particularly at training, we had to confront a lot of the unfortunate new policies and things like that, and how it's going to directly impact our jobs. And that
Mhm.
made it really real, because it was like, the people who's impacted, and part of your job is going to be to try and help those people, what you can do and things like that. It just made it very real, you know and then I didn't know quite what to do with that. And then on the contrary, there's like a competition I've been waiting for years to participate in, like a wonderful opportunity that's this year and it's this semester, and I'm like, I don't know how to do those two things at the same time. And sometimes it's like, can I just have to do those two things at the same time? It's like, I'm like, I guess maybe, like, I know, I'm not sure. I think definitely have the space to talk about it here at SDI, and have community. I think that's one of the most important things, because I mean, that definitely helped me through, at least today, trying to having other people there were also, at training, friends who were like, well, we don't know quite what to do, but here's what we can try. And I think that's where we can all start. And then once you start, you can figure out how you personally want to deal with it. I think that's probably the best advice I can give.
Absolutely. That it really is a practice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is really, it's been our approach in SDI for a long time that our work of diversity, inclusion, there can be a lot of heavy emotions that come from that. But if we're not practicing joy, if we're not living our lives in that, I think there's a real risk of what happens to our ability to remain in the work together if we're not making space for our joy and each
Mhm.
other. Um, I was really grateful today to kind of come out of the day and just feel so excited for our new school year together. Um, I think I wanted to bring into this space a name. We've had some reflections over the past few weeks that there feels this urgency to kind of like hyper consume a lot of the really difficult things in the world, whether that be a good old doom scroll, looking at videos online, just really feeling like your place in the world right now is to bear witness to a lot of the harm that we see in the world. I think what we wanted to offer for this, and especially as folks are coming into a new space and they might not know each other yet, um, we wanted to name that we do believe it's important to be informed and know kind of how we're grounding our work, but that we do not see the work, the capital T W work, as simply like consuming trauma and harm and everything like that. I think really being able to direct that into each other is what we kind of think about as to how to really frame kind of, okay, now what? Um, I think there's a lot of discourse or ideas online about what we need to do, about what is the right decision or what is the right path to take once you've kind of named some of the harms in the world. Now what?
Mhm.
Um, I think our position really like we don't have that answer for you. I think that really is a really beautiful conversation with yourself, community, identities, like really deciding what feels most affirming and useful for you. Um, but I think in this current moment, as we're entering our spring 2025 semester, what we did want to bring into the space is to talk about, our ability to focus on things we can control and the things that we ourselves can do is a really important tool, I think, to carry with us as we enter this new community together. Some questions that we've kind of come up with to frame what to think about is asking yourself what issues really matter to you right now. Um, how do you learn best? What tangible time do you feel like you actually have commitments for when you're thinking about protecting your time for self-care, joy, community, friendships, things like that? Do you feel you have a friend group or network to really process things with together? Who do you learn the best from? Who do you learn the best with? Um, And one of the ones I just felt really beautiful was what is your actual self-care practice throughout all of this? Can you think of some tangible ways that you really stay grounded and care for yourselves in this type of space and this type of work? I briefly wanted to jump in to invite you to fill out our listener survey. Our first year was made by and for students to address topics that students see as potential barriers, concerns, or intentional joyous moments to get from our first year to graduation. Go to bit.ly/OFY feedback. That's bit.ly/OFY FEED to fill out the survey. As a thank you, you will be entered into a raffle every semester. Thank you, and now back to the episode. Putting that into the space, I wanted to ask both of you, recognizing that these are often a practice, how have you practiced finding what feels right and supportive for you as two people who are very dedicated to education work, justice work, like community work that you both do? How have you thought about how to go about entering this space, especially for our students who are brand new?
I think, well, for me specifically, I like for a long time, I really liked being very hands-on and direct, like, not necessarily seeing immediate results, but seeing the immediate action, if that's the way to put it. So like I like to go to like things like protest. I'd like to go and, look online and see what people are doing, like directly donating, seeing things happen. But I think especially as the past year has gone on, you know, terrible things don't exactly end immediately the same way that like trying to do something, or at least the way I was trying to work with things, would happen immediately. So especially since you start doing it over and over and over again, it kind of became the same as doom scrolling after a while, where it was like you're doing all this and it seems like something, it feels powerful in the moment, and then later on, something will just not happen, and then you'll feel really like depressed. It's like, why did I even do that kind of thing? And I feel like social media, especially, like empowers that feeling, that bad feeling, where it's like, why even do anything? But then simultaneously be like, well, you should be doing something. That kind of contradiction, that's kind of, I don't know, it's like a little bit not toxic, but not helpful kind of thing, where it's like, it makes sense. Like, there's a motivating part of it, but it's so small compared to the very, like, um, condescending almost part of it. So I think what I've been doing now instead is, rather than doing like the bigger, well, more expected of things, I've been trying to look more into personally like educating myself on certain things. Like, I've been getting back into reading. That was like a goal of mine anyway, but in my little 3 book process, I've actually found that each little book has taught me something new. So like, I read one for this work for you guys, but then I read two for myself, and both of them were like, one was one I really wanted to read, and then another one was like, it was called Love Medicine. It was focused on, it was stories of people on a reservation. So I was like, okay, I haven't experienced this. It's a work of fiction. I want to enjoy it. And both of them really, they not only taught me stuff about what I wanted to do, like Love Medicine helped me think about what I want to do for my book, like the structure. I was like, that was really cool. But it also exposed me to, a new culture. I was like, really, that was really cool. And that kind of re-enabled me to go back and be like, okay, well, what I want to do with, because I do care about social justice and things like that, but I could do it with what I'm really passionate about, and I wouldn't burn out in that way, because I was like, okay, books are really helpful. This book really helped me. So this book can really help people in the long term, especially since we're low key losing books slowly. With each new book, I could help people and pursue my passion at the same time, kind of like combining those things together. And that's really helped me out the long term, instead of focusing on the short term things. The short term things are still available, but the long term things help you stay steady on that path, and they help you keep going. And especially since everyone here is a Columbia student, you want to do some kind of art form. Figuring out how to link those two things in a way that makes you feel like you can keep going, I think that's very important and extremely vital for your own career development as well as others. I think that's really cool.
I love that. John, what does this practice look like for you?
Man, I wish I could read. Um,
Real?
so um, yeah, I don't know. I think I, in this time, made an effort to like reach out with and stay connected to the people around me. Both in making sure that they're okay and having them as my support group. I feel like I become most aware of what is going on physically when I'm around other people, because things don't always reach my ears. um, I'm like more encouraged to educate myself when my friend will be like, "Hey, did you hear that this happened?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, I live under a rock." Anyway, and I feel like that has helped me through a lot, especially recently. I haven't been doing as much things as I'd like to lately because just life. Um, but kind of sitting with the feeling of like that's okay, you
Mm,
know? Um, I don't think that it's always a healthy mindset to have where like people feel like they need to do X or they need to do Y. I feel like sometimes it's okay to just focus on yourself and be, especially when, maybe you're not okay. Um, and that's kind of what I've been coming to terms with, and I'm also having people around me come to terms with as well, because I know that they've been kind of going through it lately. Um, it is unfortunate, but it is the reality right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate both of those. I think as we kind of wrap up our discussion, um, for our new or even our newer students coming in, is there any other kind of final message that you would like to share with them?
Welcome to Colombia.
Yeah.
It is very fun here if you haven't been here already. And I encourage you to go to events because we have a lot of those. As an engaged leader, you should go to the block party happening in a couple of weeks because it's like a mini convocation, which if you've ever seen Monsters Inc. or Pitch Perfect, it's like when there's a bunch of those tables set out those scenes where people are like, join our club, do this, do this. That's essentially what it is. And you get free little snacks and buttons and little goodies and stuff. And it's the best space to get connected if you want to visually see all of the fun clubs and organizations that the school has to offer. I think definitely do that.
Yay. Well, thank you both. We are so deeply excited for our new students, our students who are coming back. Columbia is such a special place to be, and I think we have such a beautiful capacity to do all of the work that we've talked about together because of the type of place that we are. We're excited for the rest of the year. We're excited to see you all, and we will see you next time.
Yay. Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.